What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another edition of the podcast. My name is Ramon, and this is Dad's podcast project. Wow, is it a hot weekend? Hopefully you guys are having a good Labor Day weekend and enjoying your time off with family or friends or sheltered in place if the trend is continuing on the path. But I mean, man, we got some really good barbecuing done this weekend. I fired up the Traeger and I figured I would share this. So I went to the store and I picked up a tri-tip, a rack of beef ribs, and some linguiça. The linguiça of which we did not barbecue. After I had the tri-tip and the ribs on the Traeger, I figured, wow, this is definitely a lot of meat, and I don't think that we're gonna go ahead and fire up the rest of this, at least not today. And so I was low on pellets, so I stopped by Miners on my way back, and I picked up another bag of Traeger's Reserve pellets. Not really today, but yesterday's barbecue, we were really just using up the rest of the oak pellets. And after I fired that up, I started at 275. I figured 275 might give me a couple hours worth of good smoke, and it might end up yielding a low and slow type of cook for this tri-tip. For most of you who are familiar with the Santa Maria style barbecue, you pretty much throw it on the pit and you just cook that thing. I mean, it should be on and off within the hour. I wanted to take a different approach this time. I definitely wanted to try to not really go for an 8-hour smoke like a brisket. However, I didn't want it to be a 1-hour cook like a typical tri-tip. So I figured 275 would be a good temperature to maintain, and unfortunately, it really wasn't. Tri-tip cooks pretty quick. At 275, we were well within the hour and 20 minute mark, and that tri-tip was pretty much ready to come off. So I think next time I try to do a tri-tip and I want to do it low and slow, I might do 205 or 210 on the temp. But for anybody who's familiar with smoking on a Traeger, you don't get any grill marks. You don't get any. I mean, you build up some kind of bark, and that's about it. But I didn't do any dry rub on this tri-tip, so there really wasn't much in regards to bark being built up. And after an hour and a half, I mean, you're not really getting any anyways. So I wheeled out my gas grill. I cranked that bad boy up, and I tried the reverse sear approach. So I let those grates get as hot as they could in a gas grill. I mean, we're looking at like 400, 450 at least. It would be preferable 500 plus, but still, I don't have like the sear feature or anything like that on my gas grill. And once I got going, I took the tri-tip and I put it down for a total of 4 minutes on each side, doing a half churn or a quarter churn to try to get some diamond shaped grill marks on the tri-tip. And after that, it was ready to come off. That was a nice char on the outside. We were getting some flare ups inside of the gas grill, so that was increasing the heat of the grill. And once it came off, just let it sit and went and approached tried to take a look at the internal temps on the ribs. Again, if you guys are watching videos about how to slow cook beef ribs, chances are your market or your butcher isn't really leaving you the ribs that you're seeing on either Traeger's website or any other place like that on YouTube. Being here in California, they barely leave anything on the ribs. They trim off all that meat. So really, it was just like it was a practice run to see if we can get some ribs with some tender meat that would just come right off of the bone. And an hour and a half, again, is not enough time to render that fat and get some pullback. It definitely would have needed 3 to 4, I think. So next time around, again, the temperature is going to have to be much lower, and I might do a wrap halfway through. Just try to do it the same way I do a rack of pork ribs. But it was delicious nonetheless. I mean, I ended up finishing all the ribs yesterday and just finished the remainder of the tri-tip today for lunch. It was tremendous. It was an amazing, flavorful barbecue. The beef ribs, I did use Traeger's beef rub. Coated it with some yellow mustard in order to get that rub to adhere. You couldn't, for anybody who's skeptic about like, oh my gosh, mustard, you don't taste it. Once it's cooked, the flavor of that mustard is no longer apparent, but delicious nonetheless. So things that we've been doing around the house, though, still making progress on some yard work around here. The weather's been crazy this weekend. It's probably one of the hottest weekends of the year so far. I think we topped out at like 110, 112 maybe, and that's here on the Central Coast. I know it's been a lot hotter in other parts of California, so much so that we've had even more wildfires breaking out, which is never good. But with the yard work that we're making progress on and trying to get the front yard dialed in so that we can have like a somewhat aesthetically pleasing front yard. I could only really carve out enough time when the temperature finally died down. It was just way too intense to get out there. We're attempting to potty train our daughter, which is really cool. I mean, it takes a lot of focus from a parent. Constantly asking, do you have to go potty? Do you have to go potty? And fortunately for us, I mean, she is a very quick learner. She grasps the concept of things a lot faster. Not to compare the two, but I think it's just maybe her personality. And being the second child, she's had more time to observe her older brother and his actions and kind of just learn by observation. So I think that's why she's probably got the leg up this time around. And so when we were attempting to yesterday, we had a few successful bathroom trips. And then at night before bed, when we put her in her diaper and we were saying goodnight, she told us she had to go potty. And we're like, okay, well, let's go. And we got her out of bed, and sure enough, she had to go. And it was pretty awesome. Today, however, there have been a few accidents. I want to say 2. We have a ton of like training underwear that my wife has been changing her out of, and she's keeping the mop handy. And, you know, it's just when you have kids, there's a learning curve, and they're never going to get it like right away. So hopefully it's just a couple days and then she's into the routine, and then we'll only have to worry about a few accidents here or there. But it's kind of a bittersweet moment. My wife had mentioned it the other night how, you know, we're no longer going to have babies in the house anymore because no one's wearing diapers. We're going to have a house full of toddlers now. And it's definitely the growing up too fast statement or saying, it's all too real once you have kids. And we want to pretty much just bottle these moments and save them, but we can't. All we can do is watch and guide and enjoy. Our son, he's well under his way with the online schooling. Distant learning is never easy. I think that there's a lot of parents out there who are probably having a really tough time. I know that it can be difficult even for us to try to maintain our son's focus when it's with a computer, because I don't know if he thinks it's just a game, or I know he knows it's school, but I don't know if sometimes he feels like it's just a game and he can just act silly and do all these other things. Like, there's a lot I feel maybe some of these kids are missing out on in terms of just the social cues that you get from your peers when in a real life social interaction, such as the classroom or the playground. It's places like this where I feel kids and even us as people learn the most, as interacting with others. and there's a lot that's being lost right now. I hope that we can get back to some sort of social norm and our kids can get into school again. Not so much because we don't want them home, but more so because we don't want them to miss out on some of these milestones, some of these important points in their lives that every kid, well, not really every kid, but a lot of kids experience and go through in their own path towards development. I think that it can be tough. I know that I listened in on one of my son's classes, and it takes a very special individual like my son's teacher to be able to maintain focus and some sense of sanity with a bunch of kids turning on the mics and yelling and turning off the mics and all this stuff. It seems a little bit chaotic, and even though the classes, they're very, very short, which is another thing that's very different from had they been in class, had they been actually sitting there, they would do the work and then they would go play and then they would come back and it would be an entire structured thing. But I guess it's different. We set up a desk in here in my office for our son so that he at least has a space where he feels like he goes to just for school. We're not using this desk for any other purpose than school. So hopefully he gets it, I guess, kind of in his head that, well, when you're here, this is what it's intended for. Just like when you're sitting at the dinner table, it's for dinner. When you're sitting at your craft table with your sister, it's for crafts or coloring. And when you're playing in your room, it's for playing, or in your bed, it's for sleeping. We want to build that type of association with this desk, that when you're here at this desk, this is for school, this is for learning, and trying to nail that home. Well, we're still working on it, so stay tuned. We'll have to revisit that on a later episode. But for the most part, it's been a very busy 3-day weekend for us. A very hot 3-day weekend. Definitely got some good barbecuing going. Today, we're trying to minimize the cooking in the house. We have the fans going and about to enjoy some haiva for our dinner / maybe late lunch. For those of you who don't know, it's a crab dish that is amazing. It's an amazing dish, especially on a hot day. Crack a cold soda or one of those jarritos, Mexican drinks, and you're good to go. Or beer. I mean, depends, whatever your flavor. But yeah, that's pretty much what has been going on, what has been transpiring for this 3-day weekend. And I want to thank you guys again for your continued support of the podcast. And as always, until next time, see ya.